Hey class, and welcome to the fall 2020 version of Administrative Law. It is good to have you here. I hope that you are all doing as well as possible, during these uncertain times. I am going to break up our week one lecture into two parts. So part one, this part, is going to just provide an overview of the course itself, a review of our course materials, and some other administrative details. And then part two is going to provide a substantive lecture about administrative law. And at that point, it'll be really clear why I have chosen this particular image from the movie The Matrix as our cover slide. So a little bit about me. My name is Jen Gartner. I'm going to be your instructor this semester. As an attorney, I have my Juris Doctor, or JD. I also have a Master's of Public Administration. I do not have a PhD, so there is no need to call me Dr. Gartner. Please feel free to call me Jen, Professor Gartner, any of those are fine. I used to work physically at the School of Public Affairs, and I have been teaching graduate level classes for 15 years now. In my day job, I am Associate General Counsel at University of Maryland College Park. That's located just outside of Washington, D.C. And I have always worked as an attorney in the field of administrative law, and that encompasses almost every type of government regulation imaginable. And a large university, like University of Maryland or University of Colorado, regardless of campus, is a lot like a city. We've got housing, we've got restaurants, stores, libraries, public buildings, stadiums, Department of Transportation, a farm, a health center, a performing arts center, about 2,000 laboratories at UMD. Those require environmental permitting and other safety plans. So we plan for active shooter scenarios, health epidemics, biosafety issues, release of hazardous materials. On my campus, we've got a nuclear research reactor, and so we also deal with radiation safety matters. And administrative law forms the basis for many of these activities and the legal support that is required to carry them out properly. So I'm hoping that my experiences as an attorney, as well as all of your experiences, are going to let us have a really interesting, informative semester. And just so that you know a little bit about me as a person, I am a first-generation American, 100% Hungarian descent. In the upper right, that's a picture of me, and that's actually the chain bridge in Budapest behind me. I'm married. I've got two dogs, Willow and Bilbo. A huge Baltimore Ravens fan, and in my spare time, I do amateur cartography. So I draw maps of places both real and imaginary. So if it is not clear already, it will become clear throughout the semester that I am a bit of a nerd, but I am going to draw on that background in order to make this class a fun class. So let's take a look at what we're going to cover this semester. So in this class, we're going to examine our government and our daily lives in the United States through the lens of administrative law and how it impacts us. So this week, I'm going to provide an overview of the field of administrative law. Next week, we're going to jump into branches and functions of government. We are also going to cover legal research. It'll be legal research for non-lawyers, because as the name of this course implies, we're going to spend a lot of time dealing with the law. So for us, that's statutes, regulations, and case law primarily. Try not to be put off by the legal research aspect. Students usually find it confusing and even a little bit scary at first, and that is completely normal. But they'll wind up realizing that understanding the concept of legal research, at least, is useful not just for class, but also in your careers as public administrators. So after that, we're really going to dive into agency actions. What agencies do, what gives agencies the authority to take action, how agencies are created, and how they in turn create regulations and hold people accountable for compliance with those regulations. We're also going to discuss how we, the people, hold agencies accountable for their own actions or inactions, and we do that through constitutional constraints, through our court system, and through public access to the workings of our government. And then finally, we are going to examine how you, as public administrators, can best work with your agency's attorneys and manage the legal resources that are going to be available to you during your career. Before we even jump into the real course overview, I want to say Don't worry if this does not make sense at first. Administrative law, although it's all around us and it really does form the bedrock of our government, our system of government, and our interactions with the government, it's not something that most people think about. And the way that we're going to learn this, it can be a little bit challenging. You won't necessarily be able to see the forest from the trees at first. We're going to be concentrating on those trees. But I promise you, at some point, you're going to sort of be able to take a step back. You'll have this aha moment and you'll get the big picture. And it's my job as your instructor to help you get there. So please feel free to ask me any questions that you'd like. There are no dumb questions when it comes to administrative law or the structure of our government. This is a brand new topic for a lot of you, so don't worry about it. Don't worry if it's confusing at first. It is to a lot of students, but it will become clear. All right, let's do just a little administrative overview of the course. So we've got a textbook, Administrative Law by Daniel Hall. I think it's probably one of the best administrative law textbooks out there, and it is particularly aimed at non-attorneys. We're going to have a variety of reading handouts that are going to be available in the Canvas classroom, and we're going to read part of Senator Elizabeth Warren's book, A Fighting Chance. So we're going to read A Fighting Chance not for political reasons, but because it provides a unique insider look at the creation of a new federal agency, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It's not new anymore, but when the book was written, it was. So the CFPB was created by Congress as part of the Dodd-Frank Act, and it was designed to protect regular Americans from the types of predatory financial activities that triggered the 2008 economic collapse. So you will note in the syllabus that I have designated some chapters as okay to skim, and that's because those chapters just are not directly related to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We are going to stop after chapter 5. Obviously, you are free to finish reading the book, but I'm really just focused on the portions that inform our study of administrative law. So your grade for the semester, it's going to be based on a variety of items. You've got assignments, discussions, news items, and a final policy analysis memo. So the written assignments you're going to have, in addition to that final memo, 2 memos and 2 case briefs. And these memos are intended to have real-world applicability. I'm not focusing this class on theory. I'm focusing it on things that you will actually need in the real world as a public administrator. And a lot of my former students have found these memos to be really, really helpful, use them as writing samples and job applications. I hope that you will also find them useful. Although each of you are going to have to turn in your own case briefs and memos, there will be collaborative discussion boards available so that you can ask questions, you can bounce ideas around, and you could just generally assist each other in deciding how to answer the assignment questions. We're also going to have discussions, 10 of them total, but only 8 of them are graded. I promise I am going to try to keep them interesting. I've got the discussion questions set in my mind for now, but I will flex them. I'll pick different topics if there are news items or current events that come up that I feel are important for discussion. If you've got questions that you would like to have in a discussion, please feel free to send them to me. I can consider those as well. The discussions and the news items, these are intended to be easy A's for you. I want the discussions to be engaging, but I understand that not everybody can be on, every single week. So for the discussions and the news items, as long as I can tell that you've put in effort, that should get you an A. So these are really the easy A portions of the class. Given that we are in the midst of an unfolding global pandemic, I am also offering a get out of jail free card to each of you. So that's going to allow you to submit a written assignment up to 7 days late with no questions asked. Please do let me know if you intend to use it, just because I will worry if I don't hear from you in a week. So just give me a heads up when you can. We will start the semester under the assumption that we're going to have a normal semester. I mean, we've got an online class regardless, but even so, I will be flexible. I will adapt to changing circumstances. I know that many of you, you've got day jobs and families, and you're facing both the normal stress of graduate school and the added stress of COVID-19. So if at any time you find yourself personally impacted by the virus, you're sick or you're caring for someone who is, or your job requires that you work more hours than usual in response, please let me know. I'm going to do my best to work with you and your unique set of circumstances to help you get through this semester. At the same time, I'm going to focus on maintaining a fair and equal playing field for everybody in class. I want to talk a little bit about the written assignments, and that's because I'm aware that case briefs and legal memos are not what you are used to writing. So I want to provide some reassurance about my grading process. For each written assignment, I actually create a grading table with the answers that I expect to see. You can see that at the bottom left of the screen. And I assign a certain number of points to each element of the answer. But as an attorney, I know for sure that the law is not like math or chemistry. There might not be one single correct answer. There could be. If I ask you for a specific, citation to a statute, that citation's the right answer. But in terms of memos and responding to those assignment questions, there could be different answers. So with that in mind, I read all of the assignment submissions once through before I grade them. So I read everybody's submission. And then if necessary, I will revise the grading table. Because my feeling is if multiple students have missed a certain element, that's because I didn't teach it well enough. And so I do take that into account. So after I have revised that grading table, I go back, I read each assignment individually, and I grade it. While I'm doing that, I try to provide constructive feedback, not only on the substance of the assignment, but also on writing style. I only deduct points once for a particular error, so you might see that I have marked it repeatedly to point it out, but I am not repeatedly deducting points. And I do grade based on writing style in part, and that is because writing is so important, particularly when you work for the government. And one of my goals is to help you become better writers, better written communicators. In addition to the assignments and the discussions, you're going to have to post at least 5 news items during this semester. These news items are simply articles that relate to our course topics, and you're going to post them to a dedicated news item discussion board. And the point of the news items is to make you aware of just how prevalent administrative law is throughout our daily lives. So on the screen are just a few examples of news items that I collected this month. So we've got the Pine Gulch Fire Update. That's an example of emergency response to natural disasters. Local, state, and federal government agencies are all involved in planning for, responding to, and mitigating the harm caused by those disasters. Right now, there are tons of articles about COVID-19, which is both an emergency response issue and a public health issue, and it involves many different government agencies at all levels of government, local, state, and federal. At the federal level, we've predominantly got the Centers for Disease Control, Food and Drug Administration that regulates, say, COVID tests, and the National Institute of Health, NIH, which is funding a lot of research so that we better understand the virus and can come up with a vaccine. At the state level, related to COVID-19, many governors have issued executive orders, requiring businesses to operate at 50% capacity or requiring people to wear masks out in public and practice physical distancing. Additionally, state and county health departments are deeply involved in responding to the pandemic. And at the local level, there's a lot of impact on school systems as well. I don't have it up here, but there's obviously a lot about the post office in the news right now. That is a juicy news item, and we'll probably discuss that later in class. There's been a lot of coverage of the U.S. Census because this is a census year. It's one of the most important federal government actions, and it is carried out by the Census Bureau, which is an administrative agency. There has also been a lot of coverage of Kamala Harris, especially now that she's been selected as the VP candidate on the Democratic ticket. But before Senator Harris joined Congress, she was a district attorney and then a state attorney general. Both of these are positions that are founded on administrative law. Finally, just last week, the GAO determined that the top 2 officials within the Department of Homeland Security lack the legal authority to serve in their current roles. And we're going to talk about the agencies that make up the presidential cabinet and how the heads of those agencies are appointed and removed and the authority that that they have. So those are some examples of news items. Please do take some time at the start of the semester to familiarize yourself with the setup of our online classroom and all of the materials available there. You are responsible for knowing these materials, but they are also there to supply you with valuable information that can help you get a good grade. Please review the syllabus this week if you haven't already. You should also read the graded item guidelines. Just review those guidelines before you have to submit a case brief or a memo because they'll help you prepare those properly. It's also a good idea to review the grammar and writing folder that I have in the student resources section. I realize that losing points for failure to follow, grammar guidelines or for sloppy writing, that might seem like I'm dwelling on really minute things, but this stuff is super important. Effective writing is so important in government, especially when communicating with the public and writing laws, regulations, and policies. So our grammar and writing resources folder is mostly lighthearted, fun stuff, but it's also stuff that can help you hone your writing skills. If you take nothing else away from this part of the lecture, please know that the Oxford comma, also called a serial comma, is awesome. You can see that in this image about JFK, Stalin, and the strippers. So the Oxford comma is the last comma before the and. And it really is necessary in law because it can change the meaning of laws and regulations. In fact, the absence of an Oxford comma cost a Maine dairy $5 million just a couple years ago. And this lawsuit hinged on the Oxford comma and what its absence meant in the interpretation of a statute. So you can Google the story if you're interested, but the main takeaway is if you're drafting laws, regulations, or policies, that Oxford comma is really helpful and it needs to be there. So our class is organized into weekly modules. Each one unlocks at 12 a.m. on Monday, so our course week runs from 12 a.m. Monday through 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. Each module is going to have an intro and lecture page that'll list the required readings for the week and any items that are due. That's also where you'll find the lectures. Again, please be sure to review the assignment guidelines and the discussion guidelines so that you can get the best grade possible. For the discussions, you've got to post at least one post by Thursday and then follow-up post by Sunday. Assignments are due at the very end of the class week, Sunday by 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time. Okay, next up, please have a listen to part 2 of this lecture, which is going to provide an overview of administrative law.